Hello, this is Scott Barron with School Growth, and we're glad that you have joined us for the Tuesday webinar. We're wrapping up our series today on the Consultative Business Officer. And of course, our conversation has been around how do we position the business officer as a key asset within the school community to really provide a level of consulting, of advice, of wisdom, and of guidance for the school as we're continuing to create the best possible experience for our students and extending and expanding on our capacity to deliver on the mission. As you know, with School Growth, we are excited about being able to share strategies for growing schools, public, private, charter, seeing schools grow around the United States as well as around the world. We have participants who join our webinars both on GoToWebinar as well as on our Google Hangouts, and some that dial in as well. And then we have a lot of folks that will watch the webinars well after they've been delivered today. So we're thankful that you're a part of this community of school designers who are intentionally creating relationships and strategies and intentionality around designing schools to meet the needs of students today. We're actually in Charlotte today, where we're leading a school growth lab with some schools from North and South Carolina. These are schools that are really looking for some new strategies that they can begin implementing over the next 90 days that would produce some really strong results over this next quarter. So they're going to be launching their school growth plans this week. Starting tomorrow, and then those plans will go through the end of June. So that for the next 90 days, they'll be working on those plans, and they have come up with some really exciting ways of engaging with their faculty. The schools that are here are at different stages of maturity and growth. Some are one particular school is going through a transition in leadership right now, and so they've got a leadership team here that is mapping out their plans going forward to give their faculty and their families a high degree of confidence in where the school is going as they go through this transition. We have another school that's here that's just finished their accreditation, and so the great news is that the School Growth Lab is designed to align well with the requirements of accreditation. So they just finished their visitation committee was at their school last week, and so this week they are going through and mapping out how they're going to respond to the recommendations that were provided as a part of their accreditation visits. And so now they're mapping out their strategy so that they can see some real results happening. Sometimes when a visitation team comes, they give the school some of their accommodations and their recommendations, and it may be a while. There's a lag time between seeing some progress and action on some of those recommendations. Well, this school is very serious about continuing to advance their cause and the quality of their programs. So they're acting on those recommendations immediately to be able to give a response that demonstrates a strong commitment to excellence. So we're excited to be able to be a part of them crafting their vision going forward. So throughout yesterday, they began laying out their strategy, their target market, their value proposition. They identified their key activities and resources, some of their revenue streams, and then today they've been looking at how to begin developing their initiatives for the next 90 days to see some real results. And then now they are all working on their narrative, their compelling story that they're going to go back and share with their faculty, their families, their board, and their school community around their strategy to begin implementing an entrepreneurial mindset there in their school. So a lot of enthusiasm around how to build this type of a innovation mindset and a culture. One of the things we talked about yesterday was that culture trumps strategy every time. And we know if we've got the right people and we've got the right culture and we're engaging them in that vision, we've got a clear set of strategies going forward, that's the best way to advance any organization and especially a school. So it's been an exciting day. These last 36 hours have been exhausting, but also just exciting professional development and seeing them see the lights coming on as they're getting the focus and the energy from having this type of planning going on. So today we're looking at the consultative business officer, and we're going to be looking at especially how do we craft a story as a part of this relationship. And of course, when you look at the consultative business officer, this whole series has been about servant leadership. And we've seen the results of this across many different industries, but especially in education. The idea that we have a business officer who is serious about providing this level of humility as well as a consultative, engaging relationship with the different division department leaders within the school could be a transformative leadership role for the business officer. So invite you to download this infographic at schoolgrowth.com/CBO, and that's free for you to download and to use as a reference as you are continuing to build your consultative relationship there in your school. As we talk about design, one aspect of that infographic really looks at this idea of design. And I love this quote from Walt Disney, where you can design and create and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make the dream a reality. One of the things that we know working with the schools that are here this week, that if they're not able to go back and engage their people around these strategic plans, it's not going to go very far. That's the challenge for leadership, is getting people to follow you and getting them to engage with you. And so that's the reason why what they're doing right now in crafting their compelling narrative is so important, because they've got to be able to go back and sell this strategy and get a level of buy-in throughout the school community. And as you're designing your story and your narrative, I wanted to share with you some of these principles of design that are part of when you look at art, the art analysis. That they look at the aspects of balance. The balance of the artwork and the picture or the sculpture or whatever the design is. And so they're looking for it to have a balance in terms of perspective and how different elements are used across the piece. We're looking for what's being emphasized, whether it's color or whether it's different features of the artistic piece, and of course the movement and the pattern, the unity. So all of these aspects through repetition, portion, rhythm, variety, these are all aspects of design. And they're what the artist looks for, and knowing that they're communicating through their medium. The business officer is has the ability to be as much of a numeric scientist, right? We're focused on the numbers, but we're also focused on people, right? And in that relationship with people, there's as much art there as there is science, right? And so we're looking for this. The consultative business officer understands the art of relationship, and they know how to create, as they're taking the numbers, whether that's budget numbers or the income statement, or trying to convey the forecast for tuition and enrollment right now, of course, is so important for every school. As we're looking at those numbers, we're recognizing that we can create an artistic design out of that, so that we're helping our administrators tell the story of the school. The numbers don't stand alone. The numbers aren't there just for accountability. They're also there to craft the story about the school, about our strategy. How are we advancing on the mission? And the numbers tell a very realistic and concrete part of that story, and can be critical in the conversation with enrollment families, with donor families, with board members, and throughout the community. So we want the business officer to be able to actively participate in crafting that story by being aware of these design elements and being able to engage with the school leaders around using this data to convert that into a narrative that the families in the school and in the community will want to be a part of, will want to connect with, and you have a critical part in that process. So we're looking for the design of stories, of solutions, of processes, and of course of presentations. And these are the four aspects that the business officer can and should be engaged with the school leadership, with the head of school, with the different principals, with the division head, depending on the size of the schools, the athletic director, the development director, the admissions director. The consultative business officer is all about using innovative strategies to craft the stories and the solutions that they can offer to their faculty, to their families. So hopefully you're able to capitalize on that in your role as a business officer. When you look at how to do that, one suggestion we want to share with you is what's called an empathy map. And this is something that you can do with your principal or head of school is to help them understand the audience. And so, the story doesn't stand on its own. It's always relevant to the context of the audience. And so if you're presenting to donors, for example, what is it that are their priorities? What else are they giving to? What have they identified as things that really connect with them and their family and their heart? We had a donor, for example, in one of the schools that I had a chance to lead, who really had a heart for the arts. His son had died way too early, and his son was very much into the arts. And so that was a strong passion for him. So yes, would he give to other aspects of the school? He would, but when we could craft a solution that included some aspects of the arts, band, music, the visual arts, etc., man, boy, you could really get him engaged because that's where his heart was. When you know that, it helps you in knowing how to craft that story. So if you're talking to prospective families, each family, a very effective admissions director understands that every family has their own priorities. And they know how to listen, they know to ask the right questions, and engage with the families around their hot buttons. Sometimes that's going to be around different aspects of the curriculum. A lot of times that's around some of the co-curricular activities with arts or sports or some of the other clubs or activities that the students are engaged in. Sometimes that's around the peer groups and how they build community there in the school. A lot of schools talk about community, but their investment in how they're intentionally crafting and cultivating the engagement with new families, sometimes that may be not as the story around that is not as strong. And so we want to make sure that we can help our administrators as a business officer know how to remind them of where we are investing to see these types of results and how that aligns with our strategy. And so that's what we're wanting to do here. So the empathy map helps you understand what they're thinking and feeling, what they're hearing, right? What are the other sources of information that are informing them and crafting their opinion, and what do they stand to gain? What are they looking to benefit from? How do they win? As well as what are their pain points, and of course, what are they seeing? Right? What is it that what does their experience with the school really look like? Again, whether that's a donor, whether that's a prospective family or current family. So you as a business officer can help remind the other leaders there in the school to craft their story around the particular audience that they are communicating with, and can help remind them about how to use a tool like this to craft that story and to emphasize the right points. So let's look for a second about some storytelling techniques. And this is something that there are a lot of resources that you can use on the internet, or some great books. A couple of books that we recommend around storytelling. First is a book called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. A great book that describes some very clear methods for structuring a story that will be remembered. That's the idea of a sticky story, one that will be remembered, and one that will prompt action. Another book that's really good around storytelling is Nancy Duarte's book, Resonate. So Resonate is a great ebook as well. If you've got an iPad, then you could download the ebook from the iBookstore, and it's a well-structured resource, a lot of interactive materials. So a couple of books there that you may want to use. Lots of other books around storytelling. Never met someone who was a gifted storyteller who wasn't highly valued, because that's a gift that, boy, it has a lot of benefits to it, and especially in the aspect of, uh, of administrative leadership of schools. So as you're helping in a consultative manner, as you're helping your administrators, again, the first thing is knowing your audience. We talked about that. That empathy map is one example of that. But you also want to be able to help your leaders dig deeper and wider. Sometimes we can draw some conclusions about what we think is going to work, or about people's opinions about things, but we have this tendency to want to affirm our initial opinions, right? And so one of the things we have to guard ourselves against is using this affirmative data just to back up conclusions that we've already drawn. It's very helpful for the business officer to be able to challenge the administrative leaders to go a little bit deeper, go a little bit wider, and let's make sure that we've interviewed some of our families, or some of the people in the community, or some of the decision makers. We really have some data that supports our conclusions. We've done some research, and we know how some other schools, as well as other organizations outside of education, how they've solved some of these problems, right? And sometimes we actually shared this today on our Twitter feed, is that sometimes innovation involves going forward, but sometimes it involves looking back. Read a fascinating article today where they have found a recipe from over 1,000 years ago. They found it in an old book that actually they had to translate it from the old Gaelic language. And you know what they found? They found a formula for an eye salve that they used many years ago, an old recipe that they have found kills MRSA, right? This is a strain of the strep virus that has been untreatable by most of our antibiotics today. But yet they went back and they found a solution that would solve the problem today. They're finding that the capacity, the ability of this treatment to address really the devastating impact of this virus, this MRSA virus. It kills the virus. It's an amazing solution. Sometimes finding the solution is looking back and finding how some of these problems may have been solved before, and we have to go find some other ways of solving this problem. Again, it may be outside of the scope of schools, but very often we're going to find some great opportunities to engage with our solutions in a new way of looking at it. So that's when we say dig deeper and wider. That's what we mean. Is it's helping our leaders make sure that we're not getting drawn into that trap of the confirmation bias, which is looking for data that supports a conclusion that we've already made. We want to make sure that we're helping them also compile the materials when they're going in and they want to present. They're doing a presentation. Maybe it's for open house, maybe for a board presentation. You want to make sure that you can compile your materials, and as you're doing that, we really encourage you to tap into the expertise and the natural strengths of the people on your team. Here's an example of that. Before I would go into a board meeting as the head of school, there were a couple of people on my team who I knew had very specific giftings in terms of their strengths. I knew their strength finder assessments, and so one, for example, had a strong, what was called a futuristic strength. That she wasn't she didn't have a crystal ball or anything, but she did have a natural ability to anticipate future actions. And so I would go to this person and say, okay, here's our agenda. These are the things. These are my goals for this agenda. What should I be prepared for? What are some of the concerns that might be raised? What are some of the issues that I need to be aware of? Because I just didn't have that natural strength. I'm more into strategy and competition and knowing how to analyze things. But this person really helped me step back and be better prepared for the meeting because of that natural ability of anticipation. Another person on the team had the communication strength. And I would go to that person and say, okay, here are my goals, here's the agenda. How are these people going to hear my message? And that this person had really a unique strength in knowing how to anticipate, well, this board member is going to hear this, and so you need to be prepared for this objection, and this person's going to want to have these questions. And I mean, that would just come off the top of their head, and it was amazing. And so I, of course, would make adjustments to my plans for the meeting, and then I could go into the meeting far better prepared because I had tapped into that natural strength of my team. The effective business officer knows how to encourage that same action there in your leadership team. You've got your different people have different strengths, and knowing how to leverage that makes a huge difference in the success of the school. So you want to make sure you can compile your materials, which means you want to see the patterns. You want to kind of lay it out. So I use a mind map. I love using a mind map to kind of see everything. Sometimes that might require kind of spreading it out on the table and seeing how you might connect the dots around the material and how you might organize it. The book Resonate has a great way of using sticky notes in order to organize your material so that you can tell the story in a way that does build along that narrative. That goes to that next step of designing that compelling narrative so that, remember, you want the audience to be the hero. This is a very important part of this. Again, we emphasized this last week. You want to tell your story so that not the school, not the head of school, not even the business officer is the hero of the story, but instead we want to have the audience to be the hero. You're connecting with them in a shared vision, right? And you're communicating this in a way that is sticky. In other words, it has an element of surprise to it. It's concrete. It has some real story to it. And then it's also compelling. It has some emotion that they want to connect with and can naturally connect with. And then finally, you're giving them a path forward. You're helping them see how they can engage with you to be a part of this noble calling of leading a school, of inspiring great thinking, of inspiring students to be their best, to find their unique genius, and to move forward with pursuing their dreams, right? Wow, I mean, who couldn't get excited about that? And that's what the business officer has a chance to do, is engage with the leadership of the school in working through these storytelling techniques, and especially providing that concreteness. You have that ability to make it real. Sometimes the administrators can talk in bigger language, but you bring it down to some real dollars and cents and can make it feel like much more of a concrete story, especially for those families and those donors who have more of a financial background. Huge asset that you bring to the table in crafting that story. So I hope that you can leverage some of these skills and these techniques as you're building a relationship in a consultative manner there throughout your school, and are helping to engage you're helping your leadership team engage at an even deeper level with your families, with your faculty, with your donors, and throughout your school community. So this whole series, the Consultative Business Officer, we've got of course the infographic that you can download. We're going to be sharing out a white paper about this as well. We'll send that out to our subscribers. So if you haven't gone to schoolgrowth.com and been a subscriber for the blog, do that, and we'll make sure that we send you the links so that you can download the white paper around the Consultative Business Officer. Of course, I shared with you earlier, we're in Charlotte today at the School Growth Lab. We're going to be in Tampa on the 15th and 16th of April. and then we move to Dallas, and then we're going to be in Philadelphia, New York. We've got some private labs we're doing for over in Baton Rouge, and then we've got one we're going to be doing back in Atlanta in early June. So if you, we're announcing some other dates. I know we're going to be going to Minneapolis and St. Louis, and we're going to be going out to San Diego as well. So we're excited to be able to share this experience because it's a game changer. I promise you, you will achieve more in 90 days than you have in the previous 3 years if you're able to engage around this strategy for school improvement, guaranteed acceleration of your school improvement plans. Hope that you can be a part of that as you move forward and getting ready for this new school year and wrapping up this current year. We're very thankful for the companies that collaborate with us and bringing these webinars and other with the labs and our workshops. Cherry and Company, Cornice and Rose, and what they do with master campus planning and legacy planning, smart tuition. Just love the innovation and working with them with HAW, HAW.com, HAWCPA.com. They've got all the tax audit resources and are great financial advisors for schools. And then, of course, the Draco Group and what they're doing for providing security services and plans for schools. Just fantastic services that they offer. So thank you for those companies and what they do to provide these resources to our schools. We hope that you are leveraging opportunities for growing your schools. Of course, next Tuesday, we kick off a new series, and this is the risks of school leadership. We're trying to be prepared for the worst, but expecting the best, right? So there's a lot of things that are changing right now in terms of the responsibilities for liability responsibilities and other concerns as we're getting ready for some things that are happening around field trips and around be prepared for threats from people, from processes, from systems and data, and even from media and communications. We want to make sure that we can handle those wisely and be well prepared for this so it provides minimal disruption to the operations of our school. Hope that you can join us for that. It's going to be an exciting time to address some of the real opportunities. We're not doing fear mongering here, but we are recognizing some of the real risks that are involved in school leadership, so that our school designers can be well prepared for that in advancing the cause of their school. Thank you for joining us. Again, this is Scott Barron with School Growth, and I hope that you're able to enjoy a joyful Easter celebration here coming up in this next weekend, and that you're able to join us next week as we continue the series on school growth. Keep growing, and we will talk to you soon.